Hello and welcome back once again to Beware the Q. This video is part 5 of the All Tomorrow's timeline. Be sure to watch parts 1 through 4 before watching this one. The links are in the description. And also, please remember to hit the like button, comment, subscribe and grab some merch. Now, with all that said, let's get into it. The Lopsiders and the Asymetrics. The Lopsiders have spent the past 1 million years evolving, acquiring knowledge and wisdom. They have mastered many things and have now turned their attention to the technology that has been so precious to many a species that have come and gone over the eons: genetic engineering. Their artificial Q-inflicted disabilities haven't prevented them from attaining an extremely high level of intelligence, and the Lopsiders' world is now a wonder to behold in itself. But it isn't without its problems. No world is. They are still human, deep down after all, and so the age-old problems of greed and corruption still prevail. Much like the Q many millions of years before them, and the humans of Earth and Mars for that matter, the Lopsiders had become fond of the idea of creating new species that were designed for specific purposes. The Q had made a great many species, bred for specific tasks. The long-gone humans had made the Star People for a specific purpose, to colonize the galaxy, and the Lopsiders had now made the Asymetric People. The purpose of the Asymetrics was much like that of the Star People. They were designed with space exploration in mind. The Lopsiders would have liked to have done this exploring themselves, however, none of the planets, planetoids or moons within reach had the required levels of gravity. As such, genetic manipulation of their species' physical form was the only option. These early Asymetrics are not ready for the task of space travel. They can barely handle menial labour, but for the Lopsiders, it's a start. 3,000 years or so had passed since the first Asymetric people had been created. They weren't perfect, far from it, in fact. But they were now, after 3,000 years of continued failed experiments, a functioning species that could just about do what the Lopsiders required of them. But greed on the part of the Lopsiders' ruling class would cause much tension between themselves and the Asymetrics, who they now shared their world with. These mostly stemmed from the poor treatment the Asymetrics had to endure. There was also a sense of jealousy from the Lopsiders, who were resentful of the Asymetrics being able to venture out into space, something the Lopsiders, as a species, could never do. Over the next 503 years, the Asymetrics continued to advance. They were now capable of designing their own spacecraft and other technologies. The Lopsiders were as resentful of them as ever. Who did these lab-grown freaks think they were? Something must be done. The Lopsiders declare war on the Asymetric people. The Asymetrics do likewise. Relations between the two peoples had become strained to breaking point. They were past the point of no return. After 2 years of horrendous bloodshed, the Asymetric people finally get the upper hand, and the tide turns in their favour. They win the war. The Great Cleansing begins. Over the course of the next 118 years, every single member of the Lopsider species, man, woman, and child, is captured, arrested, and executed. The last Lopsider, a young woman of about 23, breathes her last breath. The Lopsiders are no more. A little over 200 years has passed since the Great Cleansing. The current generations of Asymetrics don't celebrate it anymore. It has become a source of great shame. Efforts are starting to be made to recreate the Lopsider species. However, due to the Asymetrics' inferior understanding of genetic technology, which isn't even close to what the Lopsiders before them had achieved, all of these attempts end in failure. They will spend the next 2,000 years trying to bring back their parent race, but this dream sadly never becomes a reality. The Asymetrics give up their attempts to bring the Lopsiders back. They are a people that were designed for space exploration, and that is where their talents lie. They begin to look to the stars after finding solid evidence on their world of the Q and the Star People having once been here, confirming the long-standing theory. Ships begin to leave their world, filled with brave explorers. Their darkest chapter was now behind them. They couldn't bring back the Lopsiders, but maybe they could finish off their work. The Second Galactic Empire. A Satyriak scout ship has returned from a 9-year voyage. As a species, they are now highly advanced. They have been aware of their true origins for thousands of years, and have been searching as many nearby planets and moons as they possibly can, in hopes of expanding their knowledge of their Star People ancestors and the Q. Across these many worlds, one particular feature would present itself to the Satyriaks again and again and again. Pyramids. These pyramids were enormous, many of them over a mile in height, some larger still. They had a few of these on their homeworld, and despite being around 50 million years old, they still looked as intact and whole as the day they were built, and it rarely took the Q's nanobots more than a day to construct one. There were enough pyramids on these many worlds, with the Q's language inscribed upon them, for the Satyriaks to collect a rather sizable amount of data, and eventually even decipher some of what they found. Much of the puzzle, however, could not be solved. When all was said and done, only around 40% of what they had seemed to have any real meaning, and that was assuming that their applied methods of translation were correct. It seemed there were some concepts known to the Q that a human-derived species couldn't even begin to comprehend. But what they did have was enough to confirm a long-standing theory that the Satyriaks weren't the only ones out there to have come from the Star People. They had known about their own origins for a while now, but there was never any solid evidence that this had happened anywhere else. For a long time they had assumed themselves to be the only ones. But as time passed, they began to theorize that if it happened here, it could easily happen elsewhere. And as yet more time went by, they began to uncover more signs that this was indeed the case. A deciphered Q symbol here, an archaeological discovery there, and fairly soon the truth became undeniable. The Q had done this many millions of times before, and probably since. Now it was simply a case of continuing the search, but going much further out than they had before. With their current technological capabilities, physically going any further wasn't possible. They would have to send out radio communications in the hopes that they would be picked up. For a time, nothing came of it. But then, one day, out of the blue, somebody answered. It was the Killerfolk who returned the Satyriaks communique. Satyriak scientists and researchers were ecstatic, awestruck, and extremely nervous. Some time was spent figuring out how these two species, separated by light years of space and tens of millions of years of independent development, would attempt to talk to each other. Clearly their own languages had nothing in common with each other, originating on different planets. A solution was needed. Luckily, at the other end of the line, the Killerfolk had come up with an idea. As the Satyriaks had deciphered bits and pieces of the ancient Q language, so too had the Killerfolk. Up to this point, messages had been sent in their own respective languages, the most commonly used ones on each of their worlds. But the very first true conversation, a two-way conversation in which the two peoples could actually understand what each other were saying, was conducted in ancient Q. From there, they were then able to teach each other how to speak each other's tongues, using what they knew of the Q's language as a starting point. They would then build a strong interplanetary relationship. Diplomacy was easy enough to conduct between the two future human species, as they had both had much time to grow and mature. There were of course a few bumps in the road, a few awkward misunderstandings, and the occasional professional disagreement, but nothing so tense occurred that would prevent these two peoples from founding the Second Galactic Empire. 1,000 years after this great interplanetary union was established, a third species made contact, the aquatic tool breeders. Like the killerfolk and the satyriacs before them, they too had learned of their origins through their own research and exploration of their corner of the galaxy. They had managed to decipher a good amount of ancient Q script and were able to communicate with the other new humans using it before properly learning each other's languages and communication methods. The tool breeders were happily welcomed by the Empire's founders. The Ptero-sapiens, Asymmetric People and the Modular People each established communication with the Empire. They are all welcomed with open arms. The Lizard Herders, Snake People, Sail People and Symbiotes joined the Empire. After a 40 million year delay, the Bugfacers joined the Second Galactic Empire. They also make first contact with the Astromorphs, who politely decline their offer of membership. The Second Galactic Empire detects activity from a previously unexplored world. There is life of some sort present on this world, but with temperatures being as high as they are here, how is that possible? The past 100 years have been spent attempting to reach this planet via radio waves. The messages have definitely been received, but no reply is forthcoming. The past 600 years have been spent trying to reach the people of this blazing hot world. They have never responded to a single message. Further research and observation has yielded much information. This is a world of living machines. This had been theorized for quite some time as the only possibility. Temperatures on this world regularly exceed 800 degrees Celsius. No organic life form could possibly survive here. A response from this mysterious world finally arrives. It isn't a friendly one. It states simply, "Leave us be, demons. Do not contact us again." All communications are immediately ceased, and this world is given a wide berth. The Sail People's world suddenly goes quiet. No more transmissions are incoming. It's as if their main centre for interplanetary communications has suddenly disappeared. There's nothing from any of their colonies either. Why would their entire civilization suddenly go completely silent? The Asymetrics world and its colonies cease contact with the rest of the Empire. It seems to be a repeat of what happened around 160 years ago with the Sail People. The other worlds that belong to the Empire are all too far away to investigate. This is most concerning. The Lizard Herders' civilization goes quiet. The Symbiotes disappear. The Snake People disappear. The Modular People disappear. The Satyriacs disappear. The Killerfolk have since worked out why other members of the Empire keep vanishing. Their worlds are being struck by asteroids, and the resulting cataclysms have been wiping out everything that lives on them. They know who is behind it all too. The machines, the Gravital. The Killers develop a brand new defense system, a gigantic 3-mile-high laser cannon. No redirected asteroids could possibly get past it. Several are constructed across the planet, all pointed at the sky in anticipation of the Gravital's upcoming assault. The Gravital have tried several times to annihilate the Killerfolk. Their usual method has been unsuccessful due to the Killers being ready for them. A direct assault is required. The machines invade directly. The Killerfolk put up one hell of a resistance, but in the end, the Gravital are simply too numerous to overcome. The Killerfolk go extinct. The Tool Breeders and Ptero-sapiens have now also fallen to the machines. The Second Galactic Empire is no more. The last to succumb were the Bugfacers, a small number of whom still survive. The Gravital and the Machine Empire are now one of only 2 powerful political entities to have originated from humanity. The other one is the Astromorph Empire. The two are acutely aware of each other and their capabilities. The two civilizations give each other a wide berth, but tensions are still there. There is also much strife within the Machine Empire itself. Opposing factions bicker and fight over all kinds of things, in particular the rights and treatment of the bug faces, who now live subjugated by machine rule. The machine rulers, still calling themselves the Wise Men, decide that a scapegoat is needed. Stupidly, they choose the Astromorph Empire to serve as that scapegoat. They declare war. For 400 years, the Gravital and the Astromorphs waged war on one another. In the end, though, one of them would come out on top. It was the Astromorphs. The Machine Empire is forced to give up its technological secrets and is dismantled, then dissolved. They are reprogrammed, with their minds being drastically dulled. Debate has raged among the Astromorphs over what needs to be done with the machines. They've spent the past 120 years serving the Astromorphs as tools, but are they too dangerous to be allowed to continue living? It's eventually decided that the machines will be allowed to continue on. They are far too useful to be destroyed. But what is to become of the primitive bug faces? Is it worth keeping such a basic organism around? What use could they possibly have for the Astromorphs? Again, much debate would occur, and eventually they too would be allowed to go on living in the new Empire. Thanks for watching. Please remember to hit the like button, subscribe, comment and pick up some merch. This has been Beware the Q, and I'll see you again soon in part 6 of the All Tomorrow's timeline. Take care.